things are not looking good for Donald Trump. We got some huge news that Attorney General Letitia James out of New York filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump, his kids, in regard to their fraudulent financial business practices. So we're going to be discussing that. And on top of it, at a similar kind of time, so this is all happening at once, that's why it kind of feels like a walls closing in type moment, the DOJ's appeal to continue their investigation was successful. So we'll give you the specifics on that in a second here. But first, Attorney General Letitia James has been doing this investigation for a super long time into the business practices of Donald Trump, his kids, etc. And we've been hearing about it. We knew it was going on, but now finally she's actually announced her lawsuit. Crazy stuff. So reading about it, and then we'll look at her actual announcement in video form. Reading from CBS, former President Donald Trump's legal troubles mounted Wednesday as New York Attorney General Letitia James sued him for years of alleged financial fraud and inflating his net worth by billions to enrich himself and cheat the system. 3 of Trump's adult children were also named in the civil suit, which seeks to remove the entire family from their roles in the Trump organization. She accused them of staggering fraud. Staggering fraud, indeed. At least that's what's being alleged. And then here's her announcing this lawsuit.
Following a comprehensive 3-year investigation by my office, including witnesses, interviews with more than 65 witnesses, and review of millions of documents that were submitted by Mr. Trump and others, I am announcing that today we are filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump for violating the law. The complaint demonstrates that Donald Trump falsely inflated his net worth by billions of dollars to unjustly enrich himself and to cheat the system, thereby cheating all of us. He did this with the help of the other defendants, his children, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka Trump, and Eric Trump, and former Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg and Trump Organization Controller Jeffrey McConney. Mr. Trump and the Trump Organization repeatedly and persistently manipulated the value of assets to induce banks to lend money to the Trump Organization on more favorable terms than would otherwise have been available to the company, to pay lower taxes, to satisfy continuing loan agreements, and to...
Okay, we'll stop it there. But one of the activities that is alleged and that we've discussed before is this overvaluing of his assets whenever it was time to get a loan, to say, hey, I should be able to qualify for a better loan, and then undervaluing it whenever it was time to pay taxes. But then here's Trump freaking out on Truth Social about this. Another witch hunt, reading from his Truth Social account, by a racist Attorney General Letitia James, who failed in her run for governor, getting almost zero support from the public, and now is doing poorly against Law and Order AG candidate, highly respected Michael Henry. I never thought this case would be brought until I saw her bad poll numbers. She is a fraud who campaigned on a Get Trump platform, despite the fact that the city is one of the crime and murder disasters of the world under her watch. He continues on to say, Attorney General Letitia Peekaboo James, a total crime fighting disaster in New York, is spending all of her time fighting for very powerful and well-represented banks and insurance companies who were fully paid, made a lot of money, and never had a complaint about me, instead of fighting murder and violent crime, which is killing New York State. The funny thing is, framing it as just as a defense of the banks and insurance companies is really funny, because if you're doing things to pay less in taxes, that's a citizen concern. You know what I mean? That's hurting the average taxpayer, in theory, which is killing your state. She's a failed AG whose lack of talent in the fight against crime is causing record numbers of people and companies to flee New York. Bye-bye. So that's Trump's response. He's definitely quite in a panic, we'll say. So that's the lawsuit out of New York being announced. And then similar time, again, not a good last few days for Donald Trump. The 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals granted the Justice Department access to continue their investigation. So pretty much, if you remember, the Trump team filed to have a special master take a look at the material that had been gathered in the FBI raid of his Mar-a-Lago residence. And so with that came a complete halt to the investigation in regard to those materials, because the special master was seeing if certain aspects of it were privileged, shouldn't be a part of this investigation. So it had to come to a halt. And we talked about how legal experts, I'm trying to make the segment not too long, if you notice I'm talking quickly, I think. Legal experts said there really wasn't any reason that the special master would be necessary. This isn't a good call on the behalf of this particular judge who ruled that. But then the DOJ said, okay, we're going to appeal to try to continue our investigation and overturn the result of that one judge. And here is the result of that, reading from ABC. A panel of judges on the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has granted a request from the Justice Department to stay portions of a ruling by U.S. District Judge Cannon that had effectively paused the government's investigation into former President Donald Trump's potential mishandling of classified records after leaving office. The three-judge panel, this is interesting, comprised of 2 Trump appointees and a Barack Obama appointee, ruled unanimously on Wednesday that the Justice Department is no longer enjoined from investigating the documents with classification markings that were recovered from Mar-a-Lago, and will no longer have to submit those materials to Special Master Ray Deary for his review. So the part that was slowing down and halting the investigation has now been tossed out by this 3-judge panel, 2 of which were Trump appointees, and yet still they said, yep, let it continue. There's no need. There's no legal necessity for this special master to be a part of this process. So continue on. Wow. Things are going towards the direction of justice, I would say, which is not the direction that Donald Trump would hope. And we're going to get to in the next segment Donald Trump doing an interview with Sean Hannity, and he's melting down, guys. It's not looking good at all for him, and he knows it. But, wow. I think for me, this is such a profound moment, because for all of the time that we've watched Donald Trump and the wrongdoing that he's been a part of, I've kind of come to accept, or I did previously, that there probably wasn't going to be consequences, because too often people who do blatant wrongdoing don't get held accountable for it, especially if they're in power. And he definitely is someone who falls into that category of a person who was or is in power, who is what people call an elite. I try not to use that phrase too much, a little bit of an oversimplification, but you get the point. The people at the very top rarely get held accountable like this, and it's just crazy that it's kind of all now falling at the same moment in time. And it's interesting to watch, and of course we will continue to follow it very, very closely.